FCA Dallas has some great programs to help student athletes, and every year the organization honors some of their 200-plus volunteer coaches. Monday's event attracted almost 2,500 people to Plano, and we're bringing you the condensed version in this week's FCA Spotlight.
Most people who know coaches know they're very busy. And for them to volunteer their time to help this organization mentor kids, encourage kids, walk beside these student athletes, it's incredible.
FCA has an awesome platform in that so many kids are involved in sports and athletics. It allows for these coaches to use the platform that God's given them, and as coaches, as men and women of influence on their campuses, to just be a light.
It's a simple concept. Peers invite their classmates and teammates to meet on their school's athletic field. Students share testimonies, challenge each other to read the Word, and ultimately, to come to faith in Jesus Christ.
I don't think there needs to be anything tricky, anything gimmicky. The notion stays the same. The methodology stays the same. It's life change through faith in Christ.
We announce a male huddle coach of the year.
Would you please welcome Coach Justin Merchant?
And I'm up here because of God's grace. And I was a student about 10 years ago, and a college coach shared the gospel with me and changed my life forever. And it's nothing special, but that's what I do. I just share the gospel with kids the same way he shared it with me, and it changed my life forever.
And a female huddle coach of the year.
Miss Anna Coulter.
Growing up in church, it felt like the first time I really got my faith and everything came from FCA, and that's as an adult. And so it's just been a great vehicle, not just for my students, but also for me and my faith.
Our inaugural Neil Jeffrey Leadership Award to be given out to Coach John Clark.
Well, thank each of you for being part of the FCA team. I don't think there's a better way to contribute to and influence the future of our country than being on that team.
We also give Coach Bowden the Distinguished Tom Landry Excellence of Character Award. When he retired last year, one of the things he said is, I'm going to spend time speaking to different FCA groups. And whether you're a football coach or any sport, a coach of any sport, having Coach Bowden come here and share his heart to these coaches is incredible.
If you have been a coach, I guess at any level, you can see what good the Fellowship of Christian Athlete is doing for our youth.
It's just an awesome opportunity to bring that hope, to a lot of kids who either define themselves through their sport or they don't have a definition of themselves at all. And being able to give them an alternative to what the world is screaming at them, and being able to make sense of what God wants for them.
And as you just saw, one of the highlights of the evening was featured speaker Bobby Bowden. Coach Bowden led the Florida State Seminoles for 33 years before retiring last year. He won 377 games during his career, second most in Division I football history. He took the Noles to 28 straight bowl games, but Monday night he warmed the crowd with story after story. Here's just one of them.
I was in Memphis or somewhere. And I was signing autographs. People are autograph crazy. And so, when you're standing and there's a crowd around you and you're signing autographs, you don't look up. You can't. You sign, hand it back, get another one and sign it. If there's a bunch of folks, that's what you ain't got time to look up, sign, look up. So I was signing autographs. And this young man came, some young boy, probably 11 or 12 years old. I could see, you can see their feet, right? So I see his feet. So I signed an autograph, and some other folks came up. Pictures, had a whole bunch of pictures there that they'd been given out. So all of a sudden, I saw him again. I could, saw his feet. He came around a third time, And so I looked down, hey son, this is a third time I've signed a picture of you. What the heck you want with 3 pictures? You gonna sell them? No. I can swap 3 of yours for 1 of Paterno's.
What a great man and a great night for FCA Dallas. And we'll be right back. As the playoffs roll on, our attention focuses on fewer games played, but it's also extra time for new players to shine. Those players we may not have noticed earlier in the season. And here to talk about these hidden gems is David McNabb, VYPE recruiting expert and author of the weekly McNabb Report. Lots of good football being played, especially at Cowboy Stadium today. Let's get into one of those teams, the Coppell Cowboys. There's a good reason they're unbeaten on the season. A couple of those reasons. Cam McDaniel's been a 3-year starter for them, and David Busby at cornerback. David?
Yeah, and Cam McDaniel's a kid who started as a sophomore, and he's one of those guys that you've heard about for a while, and he has been recruited. But the more games they play, the more exposure they get, and all of a sudden you're there, and Cam will make his good plays. Then all of a sudden, a kid like David Busby, who's a cornerback, you start going, well, who's that kid? I keep kind of noticing him. They've got another senior cornerback, Bennett Okacha, who's committed to Wisconsin. He's really good. But again, you're at the game, and then it's like, well, boy, Cam's sure getting some really big holes there. Who is that he's running behind? And then it's like a junior Sam Rice, a junior Jake Williams. So then you start watching some of these other kids throughout the game that all of a sudden you knew the numbers before, but now it's David Busby and Jake Williams and Rice that all of a sudden you're starting to go, those guys are pretty good players too.
Highland Park is a program where they're so deep, there's so much depth in the program, a lot of times you don't get a chance to play until you're a senior, and their quarterback Brady Bergen is opening some eyes.
Yeah, and Brady's a kid who does well at summer camps, but until they get varsity video of him, a lot of the recruiters are like, well, I can't do much until I do that. Jake Howarth is a tremendous athlete. He usually starts the game. Brady comes in, and depending on the matchups. Brady last week was 12 for 12 passing.
Wow.
And hardly anybody even knows who he is. And then his favorite receiver is Dalton Stogner, who's a 6'4" receiver. And it appears like at Highland Park, they just sort of keep rotating in and out. And you're kind of like, is that 83 or 82 or 84? You can't even tell the difference in the numbers. But through the playoffs, the more exposure, the more you start identifying these players kind of on the rise.
All right, Trinity plays Allen, 5 o'clock this afternoon at Cowboy Stadium. Who are some of these big linemen that Trinity has? Haiva Latui, one of them.
He's one that really early in the year in the Herb Street Classic when they played Shiloh, and everybody was stunned at how dominating that was. Well, Latui was one of the players that as you watch the game on the big Cowboy Stadium board, here was this lineman that was just literally blowing people off the line. And nobody had really heard of him at all. And then so you watch him throughout the game. And then, of course, they already have guys on defense who are big-time players and big-time recruits. And then all of a sudden you start watching a linebacker, and boy, he's in and on a lot of plays. He's doing this, he's doing that. And that turns out to be Brian Nance. And so you start seeing these players that you're not really looking for, but they're jumping out at you, which is the sign of a good player.
Game last night at Cowboy Stadium, West Mesquite took on Sherman. How about that West Mesquite quarterback Trevon Boykin, pretty good wide receiver, and Gary Owens?
And again, those are guys that you go and you notice them immediately. Boykin's already committed to TCU, which is a huge steal. Owens is a big-time receiver, but then all of a sudden you see Rashawn Reason as a sophomore running back kicks or making a play, or Cortland Smith as a sophomore running back who may only get 7 or 8 carries, but again, you're just sitting there watching the game and it catches your eye. And that's what the college recruiters who can evaluate, who are looking at films, and then all of a sudden start writing those names down. So in January, when there's the old coach camp over in Grand Prairie, and we start getting measurables and signs on that, those kids' stocks start really rising off the added exposure they've gotten in the playoffs.
All right, David McNabb. We'll have more from David coming up here on VYPE TV. Who are the top contenders for the Landry Award? We'll talk about it when VYPE TV continues in 2 minutes. It's time now for this week's Landry Award update presented by GMC. On Monday night, the 5 finalists will be announced during TXA 21 News on the show between 8:30 and 9 o'clock with Gina Miller. Trophy will be revealed as well for the first time. It's pretty impressive. We'll also have it here on VYPE TV next week. In our final couple of minutes of the show here, David McNabb and Tim Polzer have rejoined me. They're both on the selection committee, as I am, for the Landry Award. David, what were you looking for in a Landry Landry Award winner?
Well, the Landry Award winner, goes to the best player in North Texas, but the definition of that gets to be a little tricky. Is it just the absolute best football player that you've seen, or is it more maybe the player who is a terrific football player but means the most to his team, more of an MVP thing? And I tend to look at the awards that way as to which player means the most to their teams. I see a kid like Trevon Boykin of West Mesquite, who obviously has really improved his football skills as a passer, impacts the game tremendously on offense, but then you go watch him play a key game at Waxahachie. He's in the defensive backfield, intercepting a pass to end Waxahachie's, last drive. He's a huge impact player. Jake Howarth is very similar. He's really a defensive back, but he's such a good athlete that he's been able to play quarterback and turn into almost a Kendall Briles style runner, 25 rushing touchdowns. So to me, those are the kind of players that really are tremendous football players, but make their team so much better.
And Tim, thanks for your input too. Yeah. We're out of time here on VYPE TV.
Okay, sorry
for
about
David
that.
and Tim, I'm Bill. We'll see you again next week on VYPE TV.
So I need to make it shorter.